morning, everyone. I'm just going to demask. It feels like a ceremony, doesn't it? Okay. So all those eyes that look at you go, we wish we were preaching and demasking this morning. But fantastic. Lovely to be here with you. Are you all okay? Yeah, we're all right, aren't we? We're managing. Excellent. So my plan this morning is to encourage you. How does that work? Nobody wants encouraging, that's fine. That's either because you're already encouraged or because you don't like encouraging. Let's go with that, you're already encouraged. But I'm going to encourage you anyway. But before I do, I just want to take an opportunity to explain a few resources. Now, this might seem like a highly polished sales pitch. It's not meant to. It's just that to get it over quickly without taking too much time, because I really want to get stuck into what God has placed on my heart for you. I want to just go through these really, really quickly. But I don't write stuff to make money. Okay, I write stuff because I really feel God has placed some things on my heart to help people who are Christians, to help those people that aren't, and to help those people who aren't Christians to be thinking about faith. Now, how many of you know that when it comes to faith, it's a bit of a journey? Give us a show of hands. You can put your hands up even if you can't take your masks off, okay? It's a journey, isn't it? And I think sometimes for those of us who've been kind of following Jesus for many, many years, we can sometimes forget, can't we, the journey that we went on, actually. Particularly for those of us who weren't brought up in a church, like me, for example. But even for those who have been brought up in church, life and faith is a journey anyway. And so, I've written a few things. Now, just to say, they're all available at the back this morning, and I can take your card. I mean, I haven't got a machine, but I can take your card. No, I have got a machine. Okay. That's probably going to be the easiest way, COVID-safe way, to make a payment. If you don't like using your card, I totally get that. I have got cash available, not for me to give you, but, for me to give you change and what have you. But if you can pay by card or phone, you can pay by your phone as well, then let's go for that, because it just makes it all that bit easier, doesn't it? So, this is a book called Big Yes, Little Yes, Healthy Maybe. And I'm not going to go too much into it, because that's why you buy the book. But because, again, I just want to be really disciplined on time. But it's a book where I really felt God gave me something. And I'm going to be really bold. And none of you really know me, so you just have to trust me. I'm not normally this bold about my own resources. I'm actually kind of quite humble. I don't know if you can ever say you're humble, because that kind of makes you look like you're not, doesn't it? But I am quite humble about them. I'm not a big sort of in-your-face person, but I honestly believe, and I've been really humbled by what some of the leading Christian figures around the UK have been saying about this book and about this language. So it's a brand new book, came out a couple of years ago, and it is about understanding the journey that people who aren't Christians go on, and how we can join them on that journey and journey with them to getting to know Jesus rather than shouting at them from a distance. Does that make sense? And so Big Yes, Little Yes, Healthy Maybe talks about the 3 key stages. Actually, if you look at the Bible, it's the way Jesus did it. It's the way the early church started. So that's the book, and then there's also the study guide that you can buy as you go through the book as well. So they're on sale at the end. And then another little book that I produced, which is aimed at people who are at the little yes stage, which is those who are investigating Christianity, not committing to it, not rejecting it, but just thinking it through. So this book here helps you to help those people, because it answers some of the really tricky questions that people genuinely have. Some of the ones that you might not think are that important, like where did Cain get his wife from, but as well as some of the ones that you think are probably really, really important. I work on the basis that if anybody's got a question that they want to know the answer for, it's important to me. Does that make sense? So that's this book here is Now, that is a good answer that I wrote. And then linked kind of with that little yes season, this is a real unpacking of the message, the gospel, the message of Christianity. It looks into all sorts, rammed full of testimonies and stories and interactive stuff. And that's for sale there. And then this little booklet here helps people who are ready to say a big yes to God or have just said a big yes to God. It's a little thing that you can journey with people through. And then this is the most recent one called Is It Possible?, which is aimed at challenging atheists to become open-minded, or those people who've made up their mind about Christianity without really looking into it. And so they think it's not for them. Does that make sense? I'm sure you probably know people like that. And that is literally hot off the press. It's only a couple of weeks old. This is a book I've been carrying in my spirit probably for about 25 years. Sometimes God drops those things and that take years to come through. Little encouraging story. I gave one to my neighbour on the Wednesday that I got it back from the publishers. He texted me on the Thursday, his words, not mine, "Thank you for your masterpiece." A masterpiece, ladies and gentlemen, eh? Ark at me from Bradford creating a masterpiece. And he said, absolutely inspired me, encouraged me to read more. Then I find out on the following, I think it was about the Monday, he'd only taken himself off to church on the Sunday without me inviting him. And then this past week, I was praying with him in my garden. How about that? It's not a bad week, is it? That'll go down as a decent one, won't it? So, yeah, really, really. And I've just given one as well this morning to the lady who filled up I filled up my car for petrol. And she's, I've had various, like conversations. And she said, where are you going today then? Are you going to speak again? So I said, yeah, I'm going to a church called the Flame Church. Really excited, never been there before. I genuinely am excited about being here. I wasn't just saying it for her. And little nudging from the Spirit. I went back to the car. I just about to drive off and I thought, I'm going to give her a book. So I went back and gave her a book. Sometimes having something that you can just give away to people is a great starter for conversations. So that would be the one that I would always encourage everybody to have. That would be aimed at your healthy maybe type people. Okay, so over there, if you don't have time to buy them this morning, you can buy them off my website, which is revmarkgreenwood.com. Okay, enough of those. Thank you for bearing with me, but they're things that I honestly believe will help you become more effective in terms of the practical things of sharing your faith. So, I don't know if any of you are people persons or people? People person, people? Should we go for people? Anybody here people? Yeah. Anybody love watching people? Yeah. Anybody got themselves into trouble because they've been watching people and they've turned around and seen you watching them? Yes. Okay. I absolutely love people. In fact, can I be really honest with you? Not that I haven't been honest yet, by the way, but I am going to be really, really honest with you. Whenever you say a sentence like that, it's like, I'm going to be honest. Does that mean you've not been honest yet? But no, I have. It's just a phrase we use in Bradford, where I'm from. Okay, I have really struggled during COVID, during lockdown. I've not had COVID because I'm probably as extreme an extrovert as you're going to meet. I'm not talking about being loud and that sort of thing. I'm talking about actually getting energized from being around people. And I felt my emotional tank. Do you know what I mean by that? My emotional tank is empty as. And at the moment, I feel, by the way, this is not going to turn into a therapy session, don't worry, okay? I'm here to encourage you, okay? But I feel a little bit flat. Anybody else feel a little bit flat? Just because you haven't been around the people that you like to be around? Just being honest that you don't think we preachers are always perfect when we're bound onto a platform to try and encourage people. We've got so many of our own struggles that we're working through. And it's because I absolutely love people. And if I could pray one prayer for the UK church, if I could pray one prayer for you here in this lovely church, and I think you've got this anyway, is that God would give us a real thrill for people out there. Some of the stories that you were sharing, Dan, was just fantastic. More of a thrill for people who don't know Jesus. That would be amazing. The average person, this is not including social media, which is interesting because this statistic was presented way before social media. So the average person influences 10,000 people in their lifetime. Now, that sounds like an inordinately high statistic, and obviously it's the average, so some people will influence less, some people will influence more. But the average person influences 10,000 people in their life. And by influence, it can be a deeper, meaningful influence, or it can be something like when you've carved them up on the road. That's influenced them for the day, hasn't it? But it's the influence of people and the ripples, I guess, of that. So hold that stat. It's estimated, I'm sure you've heard of this statistic before, that 85% of people who become Christians do so because a friend has basically journeyed with them. It's also estimated that within about 1 year of somebody becoming a Jesus follower, becoming a Christian, they lose most contact with all of their friends who don't know Jesus. Now that's quite staggering when you think about it. But for me, the bigger question, or the bigger point here is, it's no surprise that we're not seeing many people come to know Jesus. It's no surprise, is it? Because we're not connecting with that many people. I was blown away a few years ago when I still lived in Bradford. I restored, are you familiar with Volkswagen camper vans? You know the surfy type. I'm not a surfer. You think you can tell by that, can't you? But I was restoring one of these Volkswagen camper vans. It was 1971, and it was tax exempt. That's how, and it was an absolute mess. It really, really was. I spent quite a bit of time down at my friend's garage because my wife had, she'd been unwell and she'd recovered. She'd been quite unwell. She'd recovered, but as a result, I'd become quite stressed. Does that make sense? And my doctor had said, you need to take either some time completely out of ministry or just change the rhythms of your life. So I changed the rhythms of my life. And I just spent just a couple of days a week down at my friend's garage. And I got to know this guy called Scott. Now, my friend Jeff was a Christian. He owned the garage. He was a mechanic. And Scott was just a really good friend of his. Wasn't a Christian, called himself an atheist, actually. But he said something to me one day which really challenged me, encouraged me, inspired me. And he said to me, we were just chatting about Jeff, and this is what he said. You know, Mark, Jeff, this is Scott saying this about Jeff, who was a Christian. Jeff is a class 1 friend. I said, tell me more what you mean by that. He said, Jeff is the kind of person that if the wind blows some of your tiles off in the night, he would come and fix those tiles for you in the night. And he gave a list. And this wasn't based upon ideas. This was based upon things that Jeff had actually done for Scott. And I came away really challenged. Who am I a class 1 friend to? People who don't know Jesus. People who are not just Christians, but because I've got lots of really good class 1 friends. And I got this challenge years ago, so I've been working on it loads. And I think I have actually got some class 1 friends now. But I wonder who are the people in your life who can say you're a class 1 friend who don't know Jesus? It's a challenge, isn't it? When we look at the life of Jesus, don't you agree that he was a class 1 friend? He was, wasn't he? You look at him. So let's just take a little look at the life of Jesus. And to help us do that, we're going to have a little read of one particular time that he spent with a lady at a well. Now, those of you who are familiar with the Bible, you'll know this story really well. This is one of my, I don't know if you ever have life passages. I have quite a few life passages from the Bible that are those parts of the Bible that have just really inspired me, but have caused some significant change to take place. And this is one of them. And I'm going to tell you why this passage is a life passage for me and why it transformed me. So if you're familiar with the Bible and you know your way around it, turn to John chapter 4, verses 1 to 10. And if you don't know the Bible or not familiar with it, if you've got a phone, you can pick it out and Google John 4, 1 to 10. Okay, this is where the preacher's given you permission to get your phone out. This doesn't happen very often, does it? Okay, so John 4, 1 to 10. Okay, and that should bring out the passage. And if you can't be bothered, then just listen, because I'm going to read it anyway. Okay, so let's read this. Not together, but I'll read it. The Pharisees heard that Jesus was gaining and baptizing more disciples, that means followers, than John. Although, in fact, it wasn't Jesus who baptized, but his followers, his disciples. Now, when the Lord learned of this, he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now, he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. And Jesus, notice this, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about the 6th hour. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Oh, will you give me a drink?" You see, his disciples had gone into the town to buy some food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews, they don't associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God, and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." I love this passage. And when I read it, it stokes up a couple of thoughts. First of all, be normal. Friends talk. If we want to build relationally with people and go on a journey with people to help them discover Jesus, okay, and we want to build genuine friendships, we've got to be normal, haven't we? And we're not very good at being normal as Christians because we've spent quite a lot of time in a bit of a different culture to a lot of people, particularly for those of us maybe who've been brought up in the Christian family. Most of our friends are Christians, aren't they? And we haven't often always got quite as many people friends with. We aren't often, as friends with as many people that don't know Jesus. So I want to encourage you to. We got to get some friends. Now, I don't want you to go, "I've got to get some friends so I can evangelize them." All right, because that's not what friendship's about. That's using people. But we want to get some friends just that we can be friends with people and be normal with them. I read this great story. I think it's true, but I'll let you be the judge of whether it's true or not, because I'm not 100% sure. But I've been told that it's true. But it's of how there was a young married couple, and he'd done really, really well in business and got some promotion. And so they moved to another part of town where they could buy one of the houses that they've always wanted to buy. It was like their dream home. And they'd not been there that long when they were invited to a dinner party. That's posh, isn't it? That's really posh. Like, I normally get invited round to people's house for a barbie. That's about as posh as I get. But this was a dinner party. And so they were very excited. But by the same token, they were a little bit nervous, a little bit scared. You know, like when you go into something that you're not used to. Is anybody else? You get a little bit nervous. Or, how do I behave? Or, I hope I don't say, or maybe you're the sort of person who tends to say the wrong thing in the wrong context. I don't know. But you're kind of a bit nervy, a bit worried. It's not my environment. And you can sometimes not be real, can't you? And not be normal, not be who you are. Well, this was the situation they faced themselves with. So they arrived there. They got a brand new frock. And not they. She had got a brand new frock. He'd got a new suit and just really gone a bit posh. And they rocked up, and and a lovely meal, and then they were all chatting at the end. Now, have you ever found yourself in one of those situations where people are talking and you haven't got a clue what they're on about? Some of you might be thinking, yeah, right now as you're speaking, Mark, I hope it's not. I hope it's not. I hope it's not. But you know what I mean? It's like, and you have a choice to make, don't you? You can either like remain quiet and not say anything, or you can join in, but not really knowing what you're joining in with. And so she decided to join in. And so the conversation ebbed and flowed and flowed and ebbed and went from one thing to another thing. And it got on to Mozart. Have you heard of Mozart, the composer? Right. She'd not heard of him, but she wanted to feel part of it. And so everybody was talking about how amazing and creative Mozart was. And she hadn't realized at this point that he was this famous composer. And so she said, oh yeah, Mozart, amazing chap. Do you know, I saw him just the other day on the number 8 bus to Leicester Square. The husband, that's like a husband, the husband looked at the wife and gave what I have called the spousal glare. Have you ever given the other half the spousal glare? It's like it says a lot without saying anything. It normally looks like this, does the spousal glare. That means, I can't believe you just said that. We're going quick. So they left for sharp as they left. They went quickly. They got back to the house. The car doors were slammed. The front door was rammed open. They got into the sitting room. He looked at her. She looked at him. Had that momentary silence that lasts for about a decade, longer than any COVID lockdown and restrictions. And eventually the ice was broken. She looked at him and said, what? And he looked at her and said, love, Mozart, you saw him just the other day on the number 8 bus to Leicester Square. Everybody knows the number 8 bus doesn't go to Leicester Square. Who thinks it's a true story? Oh, you cynics. Who's not sure? Let's go with not sure. Okay, a few more of you. Who thinks it's a total fabrication? Oh, yeah, all right. Overwhelmingly, I think. But I love that story because she felt uncomfortable in this environment, in this situation. Rather than just being who she was, she opened her mouth and made a right fool of herself. Let's just be normal. If I have to become something that I'm not in the right company of people. Is that true? And that's what church should be. It should be a place where we can journey with people. Don't you want a church like that? I'm not saying yours isn't like that. I'm just asking the question. Don't you want a church where you can come along and not feel you've got to be somebody different to be a part of that community? I do. Come as you are. We used to sing this song. Some of you will remember this old hymn, Just As I Am, Without One Plea. Do you remember that beautiful, beautiful hymn? Just come as you are. And church, I think let's make sure that we are normal people who just talk normally and build normal relationships. I love what Jesus did. When he walked up to this woman at the well, he didn't look at her and go, I've got a word from God for you. Does the word husbands mean anything? Didn't say any of that. Didn't do any weird stuff. He just sat down and was normal. I mean, look, what did he say? Verse 7. Will you give me a drink? There's nothing more normal than that, is there? And yet out of that normal came one of the most significant, no, not one, the most that I can find in the Bible, significant conversation that Jesus has with one person. And those of you who've read the story, who are familiar, you'll know that she went on and said, come and meet a man who told me everything I ever did, and that many people believed in him because of her story. And I've got to be really disciplined because when a life passage is a life passage, there's so much you can share. It's so rich. How many of you know that when the Lord grabs you on a passage, you suddenly start seeing things that you've never seen before when you've read it for years? It's like they just keep jumping out at you, and it's like too much coming out. And this is certainly one of those passages for me. But will you give me a drink? Now, what I also find interesting about this is before Jesus went on to meet her need, which he definitely did, he asked her to meet his need. Now, in the church, we can learn a lesson from that, because we often think that we're the ones who've got to meet everybody's needs. But doesn't real community take place when we meet each other's needs? And that includes people who aren't Jesus' followers. My first port of call, if I'm in need, isn't my church now. It's my community, in my street. In fact, when I've only been doing this role with Elim for 4 years. Before that, I was independent. I had a trust and a board of reference. Wasn't like a cowboy independent. My neighbour across the road, the one that I mentioned I'd given the book for, he said, "Mark, I'm going to pray for you." He wasn't a Christian. He said, "I'm going to pray for you because I know that would mean a lot to you." Isn't that amazing? I was really blown away. He was trying to meet some of my need. And I think sometimes half the reason why we can burn out as Jesus' followers is because we just always feel we've got to pour and give and give and give. And actually, there's an arrogance to that, isn't there? Because do you know what? I need you, and you need me. I don't know where you are in your journey of faith this morning, whether you're somebody who's doing really well in their faith, or whether you're somebody who's struggling, or whether you're somebody who's just thinking about faith. But we all need each other as human beings to journey with each other, to walk with each other. But let's just be dead normal. Let's just be real with each other and talk normally and not be afraid to say, "Hey, look, give us a drink. I need your help." So the first thing I just kind of want to say there is be normal and talk. Friends, talk. Second thing I want to say to you is be present. Be present, because friends meet. Did you know, now when I read this, I don't think I've ever met any of you before. If I have, please forgive me, but I meet a lot of people, so I don't always remember everybody that I've met, obviously. But if you know me for any amount of time, you'll know the thing that makes me chuckle the most are those things that are true life stories, or that I think are true life stories, like that story. I'm not really somebody that kind of like, I do chuckle at jokes, but my humour is true life things that have got a little funny edge to them. They make me really, really smile. And I was reading this book. Does anybody remember, this will be an interesting survey, The Big Breakfast? It used to be a TV. Do you remember it? Oh, okay, cool. Quite a few of it. It used to be, it was like the first, I think, wasn't it? Or one of the first sort of morning TV. I know that's a weird thing to think that there was a time when TV, we had 4 stations and they finished at 11. Do you remember that? Some of you remember that when there was only one station, I guess. But it was a Big Breakfast, and it was my favourite programme. And there was a couple that hosted it. Some of you remember Denise Van Outen and Johnny Vaughan, who for me were like the best. They were just, their vibe was just brilliant. I loved it. And they used to have lots of these features, and one of the features was Join Me Club. Join Me Club. They had things like In Me Shed Son. This was Join Me Club. And they got on various people that were in clubs and would talk about their club. And it was weird. It was amazing. Like, so for example, these are some of them. Did you know you can become a card-carrying member of the National Prune Juice Association? Who knew that? Do you know how often they meet? Regularly. It had to be said, didn't it? I know it's poor. It's a dad joke, isn't it? But I'm a dad, so that's all right. Okay, listen to this one, all right? This will make you chuckle. The Barbed Wire Collector Magazine. Who knew that? The Barbed Wire Collector Magazine is published in Texas every single month. Each company manufacturing barbed wire throughout the world makes each type to its own unique design. Who knew that barbed wire could have unique designs? And they've even got their own name, wire enthusiasts. Wire avidly wait, the article says. This is avidly wait for new types of wire to come onto the market. Do you ever think they take offense? That's another dad joke. I'm sorry, it's COVID. I'm blaming it on COVID. COVID gets the blame for everything, right? Okay. But listen to this. The magazine has a section called Fence Facts. Totally true. And married couples are invited to send photographs of themselves for the Prickly Pear of the Month feature. What about that, eh? So here's another one. I won't be going on for too long. You'll be pleased to know. The Pillar Box Study Group. You know, post boxes. Yeah, post boxes. The Pillar Box Study Group. I mean, call me ignorant, but what is there to study about a pillar? I mean, like, it's round, tallish, got an opening bit, and it's red with a black bit. I suppose you could study the delivery times. I don't know. I'm perplexed, ladies and gentlemen. If you've got any insight into this, please share it with me. But the Pillar Box Study Group meet regularly in Birmingham, actually. Oh, some of you going, I might just look them out. And they talk of the latest news in the pillar boxes in the UK and the world. Founder member Ron Hall is famed, ladies and gentlemen, famed for his survey of pillar boxes in Leamington Spa. What about that? Now, I live in a town called Kenilworth. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's just by the side of Leamington Spa. And I want to suggest to you, there's a lot more things you can look at in Leamington Spa than pillar boxes, but each to their own, each to their own. And when I read this, I thought to myself, why? That's what I really thought to myself. But then I kind of began to think, well, actually, there is a basic human need, isn't there, to kind of meet with people who are traveling in the same direction in life, who've got similar interests. There's a commonality, don't you think? There is. That's what church is, isn't it? You meet with people that are basically, we'll believe different things about certain things, but we have these main core things that we're all pulling in this certain direction. Our direction of travel is this. And again, I don't know where you are in your journey of faith, but if you're somebody here this morning who's just thinking about it and not sure whether there's a God or not sure whether this Christianity is true or not, let me cheer you on and keep on meeting, because these people, actually, they seem like quite a nice bunch. I mean, I've not had a cup of tea with them yet, so that may change. But you seem like a really nice bunch of people, quite frankly. I've quite enjoyed myself being here with you this morning. I genuinely, and I'm not saying this because you're here, because it doesn't always feel like, I do feel like this feels quite homely to me, feels quite nice. Any church with decent toilets is always a win, isn't it? They look fantastic, by the way. Absolutely fantastic. But I think the best way to investigate faith is in community, actually, in with a bunch of people. So I want to cheer you on. And even though you might believe different things and have different understandings, come along and journey. And what I love about this story is Jesus didn't just walk past and say, gives a drink and then move on. You know, like you do on a marathon. You know, have a drink. Thank you. All right. It didn't do that. I've never done that before, and I probably won't do it again. But anyway, be that as it may. There's a really interesting sentence. It just simply says, Jesus, and I highlighted it at the beginning, tired as he was from the journey, sat down. Anybody feel a bit tired from the journey sometimes? Yeah? Anybody go, oh, goodness me, I just need to chill. I just need to relax a little bit. Anybody just at that place ever in life where you think the thought of doing more is just going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back? But what's really interesting for me about this passage is this incredible conversation came with Jesus when he was tired from a journey. You see, God isn't asking us to do more. He's asking us to do less, actually, and create some space just to see what he might do through us out there amongst people that don't know him. Just a word for some of you is just chill out. Just relax. Be normal. Be out there. Be present. Not always rushing on to the next thing. I had to learn that lesson. This was where this first bit of this passage became a life passage for me. I mentioned that my wife had been ill. She'd actually got ME. Anybody aware of what ME is? It can be really debilitating. And she hadn't got it the worst, but she certainly hadn't got away with it. It was pretty bad, and I was feeling quite stressed. And that's where I learned actually to ask my neighbours, can you help me please? I really need you. I had to suddenly humble myself and reach out to my Christian community as well, because I'd always been the one that did things for people. Anybody a little bit like that? And I needed to humble myself, be a bit normal, stop appearing that you've got it all sorted, got it all covered, and just reach out for help. And I reached out for help, and Jesus did that here. And I noticed this. He was hungry. The disciples had gone to buy food. He was tired from the journey. It had been a long journey. And he was thirsty because he asked for some water. Let's just analyse this. Tired, hungry, thirsty. Can I add another word on there? Ratty. If I'm tired and hungry and thirsty, I get ratty. Have we got any hangry people here? You know, when you get hungry, you get angry, yeah? So would you agree that Jesus right here, he's right at the edge, isn't he, of human resource? Tired, hungry, thirsty. And he sat down. And yet into this tired, hungry, thirsty moment came, as I mentioned a few moments ago, the most significant conversation he had with somebody. It's a beautiful thing to know that Jesus can use you when you're at the end of your resources. You know, and that's why it's so important that we be normal. He can use you when you've got nothing left in the tank. Some of you may need to just sit down, have a bite to eat, have a rest, have a drink, metaphorically or otherwise, because you're tired from the journey. Don't burn out, burn on, my friend used to say. My time's almost gone, so I just want to quickly land, not quickly, but land this. Not quickly, it's in the planned time to land it, okay? I'm not going to speed up my words, don't worry. But I do want to land it with this final little thought, which I think is really critical. So be normal, friends talk. Be present, friends meet. Be caring, friends love. And I've come to realise, actually, it doesn't take that much to show you care. Does it? So often when we think about acts of service and love, we think about massive things. Actually, I've discovered it's the little things. Little quick illustration, few quick sentences, and then I'm going to pray and hand back over. That just helps you to know where we're going. I've done a clock check. I'm on time. We're all right. We're all good. I like to be true to the slots that I'm given as a speaker. Okay, it's something that's quite important to me. Unless the Holy Spirit takes something crazy, but that's not my fault. That's him. So I don't know if any of you will remember, because I don't even know if there's any left now, staples. Not the metal things that put things into, not these nicely painted walls, by the way, but staples, not those metal things, but staples, the office superstore. Do you remember that? Any fans of stationery here? Yes, love it. I was beside myself with joy when I found a leather post-it holder. Some people think that all Staples stores are the same, but they're not. Hang on, I'm sounding like one of these clubs now, aren't I? Let's just move on. But I lived in Huddersfield for a while, and I did regularly go into Staples once a week on average, just had a little look around, because I genuinely love pens and all things stationery, and pads, anyway, all things stationery. And there was this guy that when I'd started going in, I'd seen him start, and he's a really happy soul. They made him in his early stages the greeter on the door that welcomed everybody. And eventually, as he'd been there a little bit longer, he kind of went to an aisle, and I can't remember his name because it's so long ago, but let's say his name was Dave, okay? Dave was really happy, always happy. And I think he'd been there about 6 months, and I saw him this one particular day. And he looked miserable. I said, Dave, what's wrong, mate? I said, you look miserable. Normally you're so happy. I said, my heart jumps for joy when I see you normally. He said, oh, Mark, he said, a nightmare. Now, I can't remember the exact details because, as I say, it's quite a long time ago. But basically what had happened is he was in this property. And you know some of these unscrupulous landlords? Well, he was in a property that was owned by a rather unscrupulous landlord. And this landlord had got some family. And I understand why the landlord did it. He needed to put his family in this house that Dave was in. But he basically gave Dave like a week's notice. And Dave didn't know anybody really because he was quite an introverted person, even though he was really smiley and nice. I said, look, Dave, I said, I can't invite you into my home because I'm away so much. It just wouldn't be appropriate. But look, you know I'm a Christian and I belong to a church. Let me throw it out in the church and see whether anybody can offer you something as a temporary thing. I said, so I'm going to do something practical, but then I'm going to do something that's not practical, and that is pray. Okay? So would you be okay if I didn't? Now, I didn't pray for him there and then, because I thought it might be a freaky thing, just sticking my hand on him just by the Post-it notes. Okay? But I said, look, I will pray for you. Is that okay? He said, Mark, I'd really appreciate that. He said, I'm desperate. Don't know what to do. So now, I got back into my car. Here's the thing. If ever you promise to pray for somebody, do it straight away, because it's easy to forget. And then you see them next time and they come up to you and go, oh, God answered your prayers. And he didn't because you forgot. Yeah? So it gets a bit awkward, doesn't it? And you have to do that thing, oh, it's down to God. Well, it is because you forgot to pray. Okay, but be that as it may, I got in the car, prayed for him straight away. Went back a week after because I said I had a weekly visit. Got back in, big smile. I said, Dave, what's the story with you? I said, you're looking so happy. He said, did you pray for me? I said, yeah, Dave, I promised you I'd pray. And as soon as I left the store, let's say it was 2:30. I can't remember the exact time. He says, you're not going to believe this. I said, try me. He said, at 3:00, I got a phone call. I said, well, what was the phone call? He said, the landlord. He said, I've changed my mind. He said, I just don't feel right. I don't feel right about it. What don't you? He said, I've got another property which I'm renovating, and I'm going to hold the renovations, and I'm going to make it fit so that my family can get into it. He said, but I want you to stay in the house. He said, then if it's okay with you, I'm going to give you 2 months' rent completely free because I feel really bad at the pressure that I've put you under. How amazing is that? Dave was blown away. I think one of the best ways you can show you care for people is by praying for them. Honestly, I really do. And I've prayed like my neighbour in the garden. He was blown away. And it's interesting sometimes when you pray for people just how much they feel something of God's presence. They wouldn't say it was that necessarily. So friends talk, friends meet, friends care. Let's be normal. Let's be present. And let's be loving. In this one act of asking the lady for a drink of water, I haven't got the time to go into it this morning, but trust me when I say that had more of an impact than simply giving him a glass of water. He overcame a cultural divide, a sexist divide, and the fact, I'm going to be disciplined because I haven't got time, but suffice it to say, it was more significant than just give me a drink. What that did for that lady was off the charts, showed how much Jesus cared. Shall we pray? And then I'm going to hand back over to Dan. Lord, help us to be normal, to be present, to be caring, to talk, meet, and love the people that are around us. Give us a real thrill for people and help us to see you use us to make a real difference in their lives. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless.
Thank you ever so much for that, Mark. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Great message. Great challenge for us to go and just be friends. To go and be present. To go and show that we care. It's how Jesus does it. Yeah. we're going to end our service there, and no doubt the kids will come out when they're ready to.